school lunch on this Farm to Fork, Wyoming. Sheridan County School District 1 took a big gamble this year on a conviction held by many that they could manage school lunch for their middle school and high school students better without the USDA subsidies and their restrictions.
Look, if you don't have the support of your locally elected school board to go this way, you're not going to get very far. One of the things we had was a moment where we could change direction in our program by having a different director.
You know, the real trick isn't what they like, because if I did that, it'd be easy. Burgers and pizza. Trick is to introduce new things, healthier things.
Under the USDA rules and guidelines, we did the best we could. I mean, we found products available from our vendors that sort of fit the nutritional and caloric requirements.
This is from FSA. It's probably grown in Florida, and it's picked green and artificially ripened with gas. So if you open it up, it's green and hard and tasteless.
We quickly found out we weren't proud of it. It wasn't the program neither he or I had in our minds when we started thinking about these things, and we said, we need to do better.
I think people want to feed their kids local raised food, whether it's Brad Holliday or us. Just trying to keep your food less processed, I think, is what all of us really want for our children. Trying to stay away from just over-processed, because then they hide so much stuff in that you don't even know is in the food.
I don't want the high fructose corn syrup and the hydrogenated oils and all the sodium, and that's all our artificial colors and flavors. That's what I don't want, you know, and that's the bigger picture.
But we really couldn't see past, how do you afford it? Because we're already subsidizing our program $80,000 to $90,000 a year, which is a tremendous burden to take dollars that should be deployed in classrooms and putting it into your food service program. But we all know how important good nutrition is to our kids and to the whole learning process.
As more and more small schools or communities start changing with the little things, we'll have a little bit more power, and those parents will get more involved and demand a little bit better and get a little bit further.
And simple foods are a good place to start.
Nice red vine ripened tomatoes is a whole different thing. They are full of flavor. They're really, really good. And we're hoping that the kids will notice that, and I'm sure they will.
What do you think of the new program?
I love it. I think it's a lot better. Last year, actually, after trying the school lunch a couple times, I just kind of decided not to eat it at all. And I was packing my own school lunch, Jack can attest, every single day. And it was definitely a lot less healthy, but at least it was edible and it filled me up. And this year, the school lunch is very delicious, and it has all the fresh fruits and vegetables and everything, and I've found it to be a lot healthier and a lot better and a lot more filling.
It's a great story, but behind it lies an enormous amount of rethinking and hard work.
It always starts with a well-intentioned idea. We've all sort of assumed that the national school lunch program was the right way, right? It's been around since World War II. This is not a new program. It's gone through several iterations. And so everybody automatically assumes that you can't do these things without that sort of background support and trying to address sort of a really global problem we have. I mean, the incidence of diabetes among our kids, the number of children that are overweight, and living a very unhealthy lifestyle is a real problem. But in our communities, it's a little bit different. Again, 80% of our students participate in after-school activities. But this program sort of just covered all of that and said, we're going to require certain calorie restrictions, nutritional standards. We're going to require these system-wide. But for us, it almost threw a wet blanket on the whole thing, because we were already going and trying to figure out, what do we do for our children to help them learn all day long? And so for us, as well-intentioned and as meaningful as that program could and can be in certain communities, it simply didn't work for us.
And in spite of the USDA subsidies, the obligations that came with them created as much burden as it did financial relief.
Because over the years, the USDA has said, we want you to do this, and oh, by the way, don't really change your price. You know, and that just doesn't work. I mean, you can't deliver these very fresh, nutritious, wholesome meals at 1998 prices. It just doesn't work like that. And so we have to make those adjustments over time. But you can sort of modify that rise in prices by increasing participation. So the more kids we get to eat in our cafes every day, the less that price has to change because volume matters.
And school lunch participation was dropping.
In some ways, we had a student revolt, to be perfectly honest, 4 or 5 years ago when the first implementation stages of the USDA stuff was coming. What we had to serve, the amounts we were serving, all those kinds of things sort of drastically changed. Participation fell off, right? But our school board hears it, right? I mean, they're out in the community, they're listening, they're asking questions, and so they come to me, Jeremy, what's going on? And so as much as you want to explain the rules and go, they go, but we're hearing it's not great, right? And so I go, I agree with you, I just don't know what to do about it. And at that moment, we had a change in our director, and I said, let's go find somebody who knows how to do this. Let's bring in that expertise and try to meld that into our system. That takes time, it takes commitment. The school board stuck with us. They're like, okay, you're sure it's gonna work? And I go, no, but you have to trust, right, in some ways. I mean, we think it's gonna work. We've penciled all the numbers out. We've talked to people, we've surveyed our students. So without that sort of support from your school board and frankly from your superintendent, who is in charge of your district day to day, you have to have that. So you put all that together, and then you have this sort of weird environmental change in the USDA program, and then at the same time you start seeing all these strands of things going on in your community about how popular farmers markets are, what local producers can do, that the cost isn't outrageous. It is affordable.
And so this year, they finally turned the corner.
We said, look, we just can't do it anymore. We're going to change the rules. I mean, we're just going to throw them out and just say, now what do we do?
Liberated to really analyze their strengths and weaknesses, a strategy started to unfold.
The difficulty wasn't so much that they said, thou shalt, have these things, because we're like, all right, fine, we have them. It was that, okay, they had to be certain color, they had to be certain, vitamin contents, and we used to have strawberries on the thing year round, and that's enormously expensive. And not really maybe as effective, right? Because the nutritional content of a strawberry at certain times of the year versus other times, vastly different. But can't we do them in season? I mean, can't we take the ripest, the best tasting of those and bring them into our cafes and serve them? Because that's realistically the best time to eat them, right? They taste so much better, and so plus they cost the least amount. So you can improve quality and taste and be responsible with your cost all at the same time if you're mindful about these sort of production cycles. And one of those things we thought immediately about was buying locally. I mean, it hit us right there going, why not?
We grow a lot of cherry tomatoes, and for whatever reason, whether it's a variety or something that we're doing, they have really good flavor.
And so we had to get over how do you get it in December? How do you get it in January? How do you get it in February? And so that's what's sort of changed about our local production community, is that it's not just your summer farmers markets anymore and early fall. They can produce this stuff year round now. And so I think that was a key change in the whole thing.
I think we have about 600 tomato plants in here. So there's a bunch of them.
The community got engaged, and other local partnerships started to present themselves.
The Masters Ranch says, we want to help you. We've heard you've been asking around. I mean, small town stuff, right? We've heard you've been asking. We want to be that partner for you. And we said, awesome.
Now with local partnerships, the investment in food has become personal again.
I like the idea of community. If we can teach a new generation to enjoy homegrown food or good, nutritious, tasty, healthy food, to me that's positive.
For Brad Holliday, the personal investment included growing without the use of chemicals.
Everything's on a drip system, but we put in mycorrhiza type inoculants. They're natural bacteria, but they're pest control. for like black fungus gnats, that sort of thing. Fertilizer, we either use all natural or organic. We're not using chemicals. We use a lot of ladybugs, green lacewings for pest control. We're breaking the pest cycle so that we don't have to use pesticides. If we do see something, we use a lot of ladybugs. We use a lot of green lacewings, things that occur naturally already to combat those pests. A ladybug lives its life cycle. It doesn't leave any residue in the soil. It doesn't leave any residue on the plant that's harmful to us. And it's just a natural cycle. And what we're finding is you bring that balance back, your pest is less. And it's been really positively received. A lot of parents are really glad to see this happening. So that makes us feel good as well.
And the Masters family is working to deliver on some of the benefits in sourcing local beef.
We're hormone-free, which I know is really important to parents in the community. And also is that we're cutting out the middleman. We're going directly from the rancher to the people that are going to eat it.
They're really excited about doing this for the schools. So, they made it as easy as they possibly could on me.
So it should cut back the price and give them a higher quality at the same time, which also gives us more feedback in the long run on what to do different or what we could change.
And key to this will be Dennis's skill in scratch cooking.
In the long run, I'm going to have to learn what cuts go better than others and how to manage that. I envision doing a lot of steak sandwiches and using roast to make French dips. The ground beef will be made into premium patties and charbroiled. I'd like to save the briskets and do like a oven smoked barbecue brisket sandwiches at some point.
I think knowledge is always beneficial in trying to close that gap. And also we're right on the highway. People drive by and know where we are, and I think that'll help the kids. And I know my kids are already talking on the bus. These are the cows you're going to eat. So the kids are already getting a connection of this is their food.
But changing an institutional system doesn't happen overnight. The kitchen staff has had to adapt.
I've been running kitchens for a lot of years, and it's different. And I think our biggest problem is the labor. I'd love to do a lot of things, but with only so many people, you can only do so much stuff.
That was one of the conversations we first had to have. You had to have buy-in from your staff to say, okay guys, this is a whole different ballgame.
It's not too bad. I mean, it's a little different, but it's not bad at all. The kids like it. The kids really enjoy it.
And your day is going to look different.
We shouldn't be doing hers anyway.
I'm not.
Oh, okay, we're doing ours. Why don't we try to get her out the door first?
That's what I'm doing.
You're going to start off doing different things. You're going to end up doing different things. Are you on board? And the reality is most of them were. Not all of them, most of them were.
I kind of lost a utility dishwasher person, and we spread that out. So I traded. I got Deb to work with me. She's more of a trained cook, so we could put out more entrees and more food.
But our staff, they're wonderful folks, and most of them have kids in our school system, and they're serving their own kids every day. So they want to be proud of what they're doing.
So they built a budget around a menu that would entice more kids and staff back into their cafeteria.
If we were going to serve this sort of institutional food, you're trying to beat price down to the point where it's as low as it can be. But we said, well, that's not what we're doing. We're going to give them something that they want to come back to. They want to participate in. We aren't going to worry about producing, the cheapest thing we possibly can. That's not what we're interested in. We want to find sort of that sweet spot between cost and quality. And we had to make the meal taste and smell better, right? I mean, that's just the thing we had to do. And so what tastes better than that stuff straight out of a garden, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about buying.
This produce comes from Holliday Farms in Dayton. They're producing fresh vegetables for us. Then we have some fresh grown green peppers. We're working on radishes and fresh grown baby carrots, fresh cherry tomatoes. They're awesome. You can't beat a tomato off the vine. And that's what we're trying to get with the students. We want to see them eat more fresh vegetables and fruits. but they have to taste good.
Like the lunch program, I think it's definitely much improved. The food tastes a lot better, and I definitely feel more full afterwards. Like it lasts me throughout the entire day. Last year I was definitely feeling pretty hungry by the end of the day, and then having to go to sporting events and practice and stuff was pretty rough on an empty stomach, so this has been pretty great.
I'm very interested to see how some of our new entrees go. I have some hot wings that I developed. They're not fried. Obviously we don't have fryers here, but we spice coat them and crust them, and then we put the hot sauce on them, and they really came out good. We make entree salads that the kids can just take and go. These are $4, the same as the premium entree. It's a pretty good deal. Nice big piece of chicken. One of my goals was to get more staff members eating, and it's working. This is much more up their alley than some of the, more schooly type food, I guess, maybe you can call it. Yeah, it's different from the salad bar because we include a nice piece of protein. And I'm surprised sometimes, and I'm really surprised about the middle school, how they're going through those pre-made, chicken Caesar salads. And I'm very surprised how many we're going through. Today is a new entree sandwich. It's called the Italian ciabatta stack, and it's a little different for the kids won't know what it is, but I'm pretty sure they're going to enjoy it. But we have a roasted sun-dried tomato aioli on it with pepperoni and sliced ham and salami and provolone cheese. They come out really, really good. It was one of the favorites when we did our recipe development day. And last Friday we sold out I had to make a different second entree. We sold out of both of them. We actually sold out of everything. I had to give 3 free meals away from the salad bar to make sure all the kids got fed.
And so one of the things that's been interesting to monitor since we announced our program changes and have been serving different foods, what's the social media landscape look like?
On social media, there was comments after the first week of school about how school district number 2 was wishing they were on our food program because their kids are coming home hungry. They'd eat like 3-4 bowls of cereal after school because they weren't getting enough to eat during the school. Because
that's sort of that immediate feedback that you get from parents, from kids, from community members, and it's been overwhelmingly positive.
But kids who need help paying for lunch had to fit into the budget too. Now, without the USDA subsidies.
That was hugely important for us to consider, right? I mean, we have a population in our schools that due to their socioeconomic status, they qualified for a free lunch or a reduced price lunch. And one of the major important concerns that our school board had is, so what are you gonna do about those kids? Because we're not gonna ignore them, we're not gonna pretend like they don't exist. How are we going to address their needs? We still haven't abandoned the National School Lunch Program at our elementary schools. It's a tough deal at our elementary schools. I mean, it frankly is to get past that subsidy. I mean, it's so critical to sort of the food security for some of those families. And we don't quite know how to breach that barrier yet, but we're working hard at it. We've got really committed, smart people working on it every day. That doesn't mean we haven't made vast improvements. I mean, we're doing much more scratch cooking. The nutrient foods that we're using are much higher in quality, much fresher, and we are going to filter and we are filtering our locally produced foods right down into it, but carefully, because we have to be mindful of how much these things cost, and we have to be responsible.
I think given the big inequality of income and wealth in America, it's going to be very hard to make big steps as long as that's true, because we do have people who can throw $20 out for food and not think a second thought about it, and other folks are scraping for every nickel.
So their independent lunch program is focused on just their middle and high school students for now.
So student previously under a program, it was 40 cents a lunch. And that hadn't changed for a quarter century or something like that under the USDA program. And so we said, the intent wasn't to basically give them a free lunch, it was to have them a reduced price lunch. So we said, it's gonna be half price. So in our district, you have full price, half price, and free. In our district at the secondary level, there aren't that many kids to have to sort of help out in that regard. And so that's why it was very affordable for us and wasn't huge cost burden, on a sort of our paid kids in that segment of our student population. And so we said, okay, we'll hold our price steady on sort of this daily lunch special. And what that is sort of a basic lunch. It's got a entree component, a couple of sides, and fruits and vegetables, very similar to what we were doing before. So we said, look, if you are a student who qualifies for a free or reduced price lunch, you can have that. And at the same time, we're going to market a premium lunch and have some a la carte additional purchase items for kids.
It's a pretty good deal. Nice big piece of chicken.
And extra salad bar options. They can have a whole salad bar, prepackaged salads, and we have all these things. So we said look, we want to make sure that our neediest students are taken care of. We have to make sure that's the case. So we didn't raise prices on our paid kids. Free kids still get free lunches. What we did make a big change was in the reduced price lunches. And so, yes, if you are a free student or a half price, reduced price student, you can have that daily lunch special, which is filling, nutritious, and really tastes great. But if you want those add-ons, you have to pay for them. And it's amazing sometimes how much disposable income kids have versus what their parents have in that regard, right? Because it's all based on their parents' socioeconomic status and all the bills moms and dads have to pay. Well, a kid might have a babysitting gig on a weekend or, have a part-time job downtown or some of those kinds of things.
This is a single. You get 2 tacos with a single.
And that really plays into how much cash they have available to improve their option. And so that's really what we're doing. We're helping them down here at the basic level, but still allowing them to make those upper level choices.
But it's not over. It's just the beginning, because there's still a long way to come for, changing what the ingredients are.
So you find those little moments that really do work commercially until more moments become possible. I think the schools can create that same conversation about how do we choose the items on the menu for ourselves rather than just taking what's given to us.
I love doing the work when you have an appreciative audience, and the community and the students have really been responsive to our new program. But right now I don't think it's as much training the staff as working up our local sourced food.
We're going to sit down again in January, right after the first of the year, and see what items they use, the volume that they use, so that we can kind of figure out what can we grow. I mean, can we grow enough onions to keep them supplied through the year? The carrots, we're probably looking at 20 pounds a week. Baby carrots, spinach, we can grow spinach pretty well in here in the winters. And that'll go on the salad bar. Same way with the radishes. We're looking at going vertical with racks to grow our lettuce. And we're playing with some of the romaines and that sort of thing for the school.
Well, I think schools are playing a really key role in this discussion nationally, but it's not always an economic role. I mean, it's that conversation where people say to each other, how do we work together? What can the land support where you are in a way that helps me do my job as a food service director? What do we want to say about the milk we serve our kids? We want that to be from local farms so they can visit the place where the milk came from and know the farmer, or do we want the cheapest possible product?
Well, and I think in some ways we might not even be dreaming big enough yet, but we're working on it, and it will lead us in really strange places. I can tell you, I've done this long enough to know that you have these visions, you have these goals in mind, and as you progress, they change. But in the end, we're still focused on producing healthy, nutritious, great tasting meals for our kids. I mean, in the end, if we keep that in mind, we won't go wrong. We might not end up where we thought we would, but we're not going to go to the wrong place either.
Every time you pick up your fork and you eat, you're saying yes to all of this junk, or you're saying yes to healthy things and promoting that economic development as opposed to the stuff that's making us all sick.
I've never seen a movement like food where every state of the country within about 4 years had activity, where it just took off and it made intuitive sense to people, and young parents were saying, I want my kids to have the best food possible at school, and young graduates coming out of college were saying, I've got skills but I want to farm.
Local food is happening all over the country, and it's really interesting to see some of these other communities that have embraced it. And I feel like sometimes we're really far behind, but we can't be compared to Seattle or Portland, and Wyoming does things on its own time, and once we embrace something, then I think we're all we're all in and invested.
Well, and I think it plays right into the strengths of Wyoming in some ways, right? I mean, we've always been this sort of cowboy state, doing for yourself and really independent. And yet on our food consumption side, I mean, we're this vast importer of food, right? You know, in some ways. But that hasn't always been the case. I mean, you know, if you look back in our county's history, you know, we had dairies and we had mills and that produced flour. And I mean, all those things was all done right here. And so we're sort of kind of going back to those kinds of things. And we really need our kids to understand what that looks like. We think that this is just the beginning of a huge sort of shift in all of our thinking about where does food come from? What's the best way to manage land in some ways too, you know, because you can't use up all of your good ag land to have housing on and still have sort of this local food component to it. It just doesn't work.
The more that you research about childhood obesity and diabetes and all of these issues that children are having now, I believe it all comes back to our food and what we're eating.